So we have someone trying to kill God now. It's that Magi greatness time, people. So very dialogue heavy chapter with this week's Magi. Very, very dialogue heavy. A lot of talking in this one. And while arguably, yeah, it felt a bit overwhelming at times, for the most part, there was so much interesting information and just somewhat progression regarding things that they're learning and things that you can assume based off what you were reading. So a lot of hints and a lot of foreshadowing, but just a lot to go into. So let's jump into this bad boy. First of all, a lot of Sheba x Solomon in this week's chapter. You can see that also there's some sort of like jealousy that she harbors towards Arba, and it's kind of funny because you see Arba looks absolutely innocent, like, oh yeah, Sheba, you know, I love you, whatever, and Sheba's like, whoa, she went with Solomon many times. So you have, while you have all the amazing stuff of Magi going on, you have very simplistic and realistic elements in there as well, where it's like, you know, the pairing thing, and she's just like, you can see where if Sheba is indeed Yokuin or anything of that nature, you can see some of the seeds being planted. One of it is definitely because of love. One of it is definitely she's looking at Solomon, I want him, that's my dude, this bitch needs to go, and is slowly adding into there. So whether Elah corrupts everyone at some given point or corrupts anyone that has a heart that is not pure of heart or whatever, they're not pure of heart, then it would be Sheba, because you can see there's still inklings in there. And while you can argue, well, everyone, you know, and like you feel jealous of people, but a lot of these people in there, while they have their funny quirks and whatnot, they for the most part seem pure, and I could see that developing, especially if Solomon says, Sheba, you're like my little sister, I want Arba. Just imagine how Sheba will react. Next thing you know, she'll be putting on a black and white mask and trying to take over the world. Wakatendayo. Naruto Shippuden ending 28 reference. And we get to see the being that's been around for possibly 8,000 years or more, the Mother Dragons. And one big thing that this chapter also made me think is that, first of all, in our world, we've never seen any of the dragons. But then again, we only went to the Dark Continent really once with Morgiana, and she went down there and saw Yunnan, and we didn't really get to see much else if she even went any further, which she probably didn't. So if there is a Mother Dragon in our world, which I highly doubt, because in this world, this was the last one. This was it. And, you know, obviously it couldn't mate any further, so it could have been killed off. But one of the things that this chapter got me thinking, because we see the Mother Dragons, and then we see those beasts, I believe they were called the Red Lions. I'm assuming, because they look identical, those are the Fanalis in their monster form or their beast form. I'm guessing it's a possibility Yunnan could be related or could be a reincarnation of the Mother Dragons. Because when we seen the Continental Rift in our timeline, there was only pretty much two people that you can assume are down there. And that was the Fanalis, that they're further down, that Morgiana had to go all the way over there to get to them. And then there was Yunnan. Why would Yunnan be there unless he's possibly like reminiscing, or this is where he likes to be because when he was a dragon or in his other lifetime, you know, there's so many things you could assume. Obviously, we don't know for sure what is Yunnan, but the way Yunnan acts as if he knows a lot of things and he's very spiritual, and he just, you can see that there's a lot of depth to Yunnan. What better way than if he was an 8,000-year-old dragon? Okay, Elah, you lazy bastard. You started creating the world, and you were just like, oh, well, you know what? Nah, I'm bored, I'm tired, fuck it, I'm not going to finish up this world. Like, really, Elah? There had to be some reason as to why he left that Continental Rift, or it left that Continental Rift for that matter, because it was basically an imperfect, like, you know, he was creating the world, and then he just stopped right there and left that whole canvas, like, empty. And it's like, what was it? Was it that he was still creating the world, and then 500 years ago, that's when the whole thing happened? Or what was up with that? Why the fuck would the Continental Rift just be randomly sat there? Like, what's going on? And we also find out in this chapter that it was the Mother Dragon that changed Solomon. So that was one of my questions, if you remember a couple of my reviews ago, that I said, what was it that got Solomon thinking? Was it a certain event that he's seen? What was it? And what more impactful than an 8,000-year-old dragon telling you, yo, there's different things in this world. I've seen things, you know, I've seen generations come and go. I've seen, you know, societies come and go. What better way than to get info from that to change a person to become this much of a righteous person, so to speak? And I just gotta applaud Sheba, like, yo, that's a real woman. That's how a real woman hold down her man. Like, I know that's not her man or whatever, but the way she was telling him, because Solomon kind of felt a certain way and whatnot, and he kind of felt like, since it's my own father that did a lot of this shit, you know, I gotta push the hardest. And Sheba realized that, and she was like, yo, we got you. Don't worry, we're gonna be there for you. And that's the sign of a great woman. If she becomes Yoku and it's like, Shinobu Otaku, you are making us really adore this character. You are making us love this character. She has gone from, you know, this little girl that was just like, had so many mixed emotions. She thought what she thought was right and what she perceived to be right was actually wrong. And like, ultimately, we've just seen her come so far. And it's like, if she goes back down that path, there better be a damn good reason. And it better not be because fucking you let Rin die. Seriously. Because I mean, even in this chapter, it's just making us like her even more. It's pushing more towards like, Sheba's fucking awesome. So it gotta be either David controls her or something. It has to be something legit that makes her, because, like, you see, she's come such a long way, and she's such a good person. And we find out that 800 years ago, God was all good. Everything was all good. God is good. God is good. But then pretty much that's around the time that King David was, you know, born or whatever, because he's over 800 years old, and 800 years ago, everything was good with God, but then it started to go downhill from there. Humans kept on sucking out Magi, and it's very interesting. I feel as though this is Shinobu Otaka's, I guess, commentary, background commentary towards religion in a way. Maybe this is what she thinks. I don't know. If you look at it, Solomon, in a way, there's a very complex situation here, because first of all, if you look at what he says in this chapter, he's basically an atheist. He doesn't even believe in God. He's basically saying that God is just a lump of power, but there's no will in there. And, you know, I really don't believe that this is actually a person. But he's been preaching, yo, God will change, you know, if we do things right or whatever. So it really makes you look at him like, you're kind of a hypocrite, bro, because you're telling, you know, and you're almost a false prophet in a way. And if the people find out about that, won't they kind of look at him in a certain way? So really a very interesting thing. And that also goes along the lines of, you know, if Sinbad did that, I would be looking at him like, you devious motherfucker. You are a devious man. So I'm looking at Solomon like, yo, you're preaching something that you don't even believe in. Very interesting. Unless when he talks about God, he's referring to himself. Dun, dun, dun! And then the mother dragon drops the bomb that somebody is surpassing God and will eventually kill God. And it's safe to assume that that person is King David, first of all. And many of the battles we've seen, King David's never been there. And it's like, okay, what is King David doing? If 800 years ago, that's, you know, God was good. And then 500 years ago, after King David, I believe he had some sort of battle or exhibition, I don't know, something said in there. Then it's safe to assume that King David is behind this and he's about to surpass God. And judging from King David's design of what we've seen thus far, we haven't really seen his face, we've only seen from the back. I wouldn't be surprised if Sinbad is the reincarnation of King David. King David made it to this world, and that could be also why Gyeokwan said this is the one to be despised the most. There's so many complications. Maybe King David isn't really bad. Maybe King David was trying to get rid of God. There's just so many fucking questions you can go from with this chapter. So this chapter made you once again ask even more questions. It gives you a little bit of context to the world, but then ask more questions. And not to mention that Elah pretty much being all black and drained out, and that's the Elah that we seen in our world. When it came down, it was all black and drained. So is that where all the bad Rukh, and that's where the black Rukh started, whatnot? And speaking of Rukh, I wouldn't be surprised, because in this world, we really haven't heard about the Rukh. We've heard about Magi and the magic coming from Elah. That's how everyone's been getting their magic. In our world, I just always thought people just have magic. Like, you know, there's people that can activate magic, and there's people that can't. But I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why there's certain ones in our world is the Rukh was made from Solomon. Solomon created the Rukh, so that way people can always have magic and not have to depend on this god, so to speak, Elah, in the sky, and pretty much have their own way. The Rukh is pretty much magic that keeps on flowing. So you use the magic and it keeps on going and going. And I think that's the possibility that that's why the Rukh system is in our world, and why people can use magic in our world, even though there is no Elah, except, you know, when they try to summon Elah, of course, the Althaman members. So overall, very dialogue-heavy chapter. That's definitely, it's a good and a bad, because you get a lot out of it, but then at the same time, it's kind of like you want more so the story to be told, and that's how I always feel with manga. I like it to be told with the dialogue and the pictures and actually pushing things forward. So that's one of the things that with Magi, that why I love the dialogue, because, oh my god, I'm getting amazing stuff out of it. Definitely feels a little bit too overwhelming sometimes, kind of like just throwing tons of information on top of you, and you kind of want a little bit more in moderation. And not to mention, we're going into another flashback within a flashback. Next chapter is going to be basically like a mini arc within this arc regarding King David. So I don't want Alma Tehran to continue too far. I mean, I've been really enjoying it. It's been amazing. It's been giving us a lot of backstory, but at the same time, we haven't really progressed at all. And the main timeline is just people are hearing this story right now. So ideally, I would like, you know, to get more, of course, of Alma Tehran, but don't push it too far. Like, at this point now we're getting a flashback and a flashback, and it's kind of like, yo, Shinobu, have you been sipping on some of that Kishimoto juice? So 8 out of 10 with this one. Definitely a little too dialogue heavy, and I feel as though the flashback could be going potentially a little too long if we keep on going this far. I mean, we're getting flashback and flashback, but as a whole, we just got so much information, so many things you can infer, and it's just kind of making me think like, okay, Sheba, first of all, if you become Gyeokwan, why? It better be a good reason. Also, this whole thing with Elah, is it King David is pretty much the one that kills Elah? Is King David in Elah? And, you know, our timeline, is Gyeokwan and them following King David? Is Gyeokwan even Sheba, or is it somebody being controlled? So many questions you can ask, but definitely a very good chapter nonetheless, and I'm just looking forward to, like, what's to come next? Why is King David doing this? So let me know any theories that you have regarding any of the questions that was brought up within this chapter. Just so much to go on, and honestly, it was that Magi greatness again. Just a little overwhelming. But that's all I have for this review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up for King David, because it's not every day that you hear somebody is trying to kill God and surpass them. ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.